Hi, everybody, and welcome to Be in the Know, Table Games and More. I'm Benny Mancino, the B-Man, and my guest tonight, I am so excited to have a good friend and not only probably the leading authority on everything table games there is, Bill Zender. Now, Bill Zender is an author, inventor, man, what haven't you? You've run every casino known to man. You know, Paul Malo in the table games conference last year said something about that, you know, when they were shooting dice at the bottom of the crucifixion, that I was sitting box. Well, if that's the case, then you were my relief. So anyway, Bill, welcome to Be in the Know.
Yeah, well, good. Thanks for having me, Benny. I mean, this is a lot of fun. I watched a couple of the presentations, and it seems like everybody you get on there does a really good job, and I'm looking forward to this. So,
yeah. So, Bill, you've done it all. You started dealing back in I think it was '79. Am I right on that?
It actually was in the fall of let's see, '79 was when I was with the gaming control board. It was in the fall of '76.
'76.
Yeah, I'm an old guy. You know,
Yes.
I'm back to the old single deck games, and 21 games, and we only had roulette, craps, and baccarat. That was it.
Was that at the Royal? Is that where you started?
No, you're hurting me. The Royal Inn.
The Royal Inn.
Inn. Yeah, the first night I worked there, a floorman came up, kicked me in the back of the foot. And I didn't know what he meant. I didn't know what was going on. He kicked me, right? And then he comes back and he kicks me again really hard. And I'm looking around and what's this guy doing? And he comes up, he goes, "What's wrong with you? I told you to shuffle up." I didn't know that's what he wanted done, right? So what they would do is if you weren't running well, they'd shuffle a card to trade, decks or whatever. But it was, for a 21-year-old guy who just wanted to get into gaming, there was a real experience because they were really into the voodoo and the lucky, unlucky, garbage that went on in those days.
Yeah, I had a shift manager go to kick me, and he missed, and he kicked the podium, and he knocked the door off, and it comes flying over my head, and I'm like, I can't put you on any game. I guess I'd just give a guy a $500 blackjack or something like that. So okay, so you're a dealer. And now you move on and you become a regulator, right? You joined the Nevada Gaming Control?
Well, it was a little bit different from that. I'll give you a really quick one on that. I actually got involved with Jackie Gahn, and Jackie was one of the pioneers in downtown Las Vegas. At the Royal Inn, I dealt for his brother Michael and Frank Toti. And then I went back to work for Jackie down at the El Cortez. I broke in 21 at the Royal and craps at the El Cortez. And then I had my degree in hotels, so the old man grabs me and had me run one of his hotels for a while. And then I went back into the pit, and I was at a little, this politically correct little casino on Fremont Street called the Western. It was I believe it was 9th in Fremont. And there was two customers who used to come in there were actually gaming control agents, present gaming control agents, and they basically talked me into joining the gaming control board. So I took the test, surprisingly passed everything, including the psychological. I want to point that out. And then they started with the enforcement division and worked both in the Vegas in the Reno office for the next 2 years.
And I think that led to many a trails for Bill Zender. So you actually owned a casino, right? You were part owner in the Aladdin at the time you were actually running the table games and casino operations, and you were actually part owner, right?
Yeah, that's another amazing thing that they actually licensed me in the state of Nevada to own and operate a casino. What I did was I was involved with a guy by the name of Joe Burt, and Joe put together a team to go in and take over the Aladdin. Aladdin was in bankruptcy. And Joe's promise to us is if you come with me, we stay in it long enough to make it successful, I'm going to give you a piece. So I ended up getting 16% and going through the licensing and that. And the funny part was that I only had a temporary license when I first was licensed because of my relationship with Steve Forty. And Steve's a great guy, and I think the world of him, and I think he got a bad rap. But they said, well, you know, where there's smoke, there's fire. We want to give you a 2-year probation. So I actually, at the end of the 2 years, went back and got licensed with 5 days left to go before we closed the Aladdin. So I also have the shortest permanent gaming license in the state of Nevada history. So 5 days.
So that was at a time where Las Vegas was transitioning away from the mob, right, into more of a corporate environment. So I could see maybe they would be a little bit stressed by anybody with any kind of connections to anybody that stole a piece of chewing gum out of a drugstore. They might be upset with. So okay, so now you're really into mathematics, right? And you've gotten a degree. And so what led Bill Zender on this path now into training and protection and all the things you do now?
Well, when I started out, even before I was at the Game Control Board, I dabbled with, I'm not gonna say magic, but just doing table, like doing fault shuffles and dealing seconds. And I had a great guy training me, which was Steve Forty. And so I was learning that. I learned more when I was at the Game Control Board. And so during this period of time, I got back in the industry working my way up through the industry. But I also kept up with the game protection, and I started out doing different things on the table, right? Hand mucking and the rest of that. And then I realized all I'm doing is spend an hour to 2 hours entertaining people. I'm not teaching them anything. So then I started putting charts on, in those days, overhead projectors, and getting actual videos of play and putting them in and pointing things out to people. This is what you look for. This is what you do. Here's a procedure to keep you, safe. Stress that procedure is your first line of defense. So that's how it started out. And then as the years go by, I stuck with it,
Now, somewhere in there, you actually went to the dark side for a short period of time, if you want to call it the dark side. But I think it was mainly, wasn't it? I'm thinking from the way you've talked several times that it was just a learning experience, because if you were going to, be in and be all the know all and do all as far as game protection, you have to see what the other side, how they live, and you were for a short period of time an advantage player, no?
Yeah, that's correct, Benny. And you're right. When I started in the industry, matter of fact, I was at the Royal Inn. I had a book. When I'd go on my breaks, there was a couch upstairs in an area where we could break, and I stick this book underneath it. It was on card counting, and so I was learning how to count cards even at when I first started working the business. And I always felt that to be able to catch someone, you have to be able to do it yourself. And it was probably one of the best things I ever did for myself. Now, the problem is now with card counting and advantage play, I went through the card counting, realizing it's just scraping by. I didn't really want to do that for a living. My heart was really behind the tables, not in front of them. But then I was learning how to play advantage play, which is hole carding, and I got involved with shuffle tracking and some location play. But my heart just wasn't there. My heart was to run the casinos, not to beat the casinos. But you to be able to catch this stuff, I feel that you have to dabble in it to some extent.
So you've written 2 handfuls of books. I mean, on every subject from dealing Pai-Gow tiles to counting for the casino executive, to basically the 2 books of the Bible, Casinoology 1 and 2. So Bill, with that in mind, what led you into writing and authoring these books?
Well, the first book was Pai-Gow Without Tears, because I stumbled into it. When I was at the gaming control board, they said, Zender, you know all the other games, so go down and learn tiles. And I go down to Caesar's Palace and flash my badge and say, I'm at the gaming control board, I want to learn Pygal. And the foreman reaches over, grabs this little 2-page handout and hands it to me and says, you read, you learn. And I realized that there was really nothing out there at that time. Mike Massanis had a nice book out. George Allen had a little book out. And so what I did was as I was going along, I wrote a procedure at the Desert Inn for Pygot Tile. So I took it further and I wrote about the game a little bit more. And it worked. I mean, I didn't think I could ever write a book. And then I wrote one on card counting and then one on Pygot poker. And then it kept on going. I wrote one on cheating, how did casinos cheat at blackjack? And then I got into, I said, I was always amazed at Bill Friedman's book, Casino Management. I always wanted to write a casino management book. But all I'd be doing is writing the thing all over again, right? So I wanted to do it from a different viewpoint. And I'd been writing all these articles for Casino Enterprise Management magazine. So basically, Casinoology and Casinoology 2 are those articles that have been refined and put together in a book form to where they read, they flow together. And that's how that started.
I think a lot, now you called it something else, but I think I read most of your articles in Gaming Times. I think it was what it was called.
No, it was Casino Enterprise Management magazine. It was Peter Mead's magazine. And I wrote for them for, I don't know, about 6-7 years. And Peter died suddenly. And when he died, then the magazine, basically one more month and they were done.
I remember I used to read your articles and Barry Meadow, he wrote the harness racing articles because of course I'm a harness racing guy, but I always thought you were larger than life, Bill. When I'm reading these articles, I'm thinking, man, this is.
Was much heavier then.
Huh?
I was much heavier then.
Yeah, well, maybe you were larger in life. Okay, so a few years ago, it's been like 10 years ago. I appeared on a panel at G2E, and the topic of conversation was, the biggest threat to table games. And my opinion, the biggest threat to table games can sometimes be us. We're the biggest threat, not the advantage player. And I read several of your books, and I read some other things, and I come to realize that it was the gospel, right? We get in our own way, and I know you're big on customer service. And I said when I was giving my little speech I said, your time and your chance to gain revenue from a new player could end immediately at the front line. Forget the advantage player and forget everything else. You're done. You've killed yourself and taken that revenue out of your pocket. And I know you're a big proponent of customer service.
Well, the two things and I tell people this all the time. I do seminars or I do some training for one of the casino groups. I said, there's two things that you should do. One is improve your customer service. And it seems like everybody's starting to do that. Well, till COVID come in. But, that was the theme. And the other one is to try to get as many hands out as possible. Or let's say hands decisions, because it's, in craps or roulette or whatever game you're going to have. And here's how you do that. First of all, you have to keep the people in the seats longer. How do you do that? Customer service, okay? Then you have to do is get as many hands out as possible. How you do that? By influence your dealers to get more hands out to these people. And I always tell people, if you put more emphasis in customer service, then more emphasis in getting the hands out, at the end of the year, your hold percentage, your win will be, but people like to focus on hold percentage. Your hold percentage will be higher. Isn't that what you want? Don't you want more revenue, more hold percentage? That's all you have to do. Those two simple things.
Exactly. And based on the learnings I've came from your books and others, I brought table games down to a minimum when I mentor people. I say, as long as you are ahead of the two T's, right? Time and motion and time on device.
Mm-hmm.
If you can get them two down, everything else is going to take care of itself. And it takes a while to get people to get on that train, but once they are, they never jump off because they can see the results immediately.
Yep. No, you're spot on. And, you know, to people are watching this. I've known Benny for a lot of years, and every time we get together, you know, we go out and have dinner or cocktails or something like that. You know, this is where our emphasis is. And I respect Benny because he doesn't just say he wants to do it. He actually lives it. So I'll give you a little plug on this deal too.
Yeah. And, you know, another thing, you will, especially with your books, Casino, if you delve into them, you understand the advantage player is not what's going to take you down. I mean, that's such a small percentage of the play out there anymore. Mm-hmm. And do you have to know how to analyze your hold and win and look for things? Yes. But, you know, if I go right now and I chop every deck in half, right, go down from eight to 4, I mean, even if a counter would get me for $250,000, I'm not going to make up the amount of money I'm going to lose on cutting that shoe in half. Am I correct?
Yeah, you know, I wrote an article several years ago. I keep saying a few years ago. It keeps getting longer and longer. It was called "The Card Counting Costs the Industry Millions of Dollars a Year, but it's not the guy sitting at the table that's doing it. It's the casinos. Because if you go in your casino and let's say we deal 6-deck shoe, and we decide we're going to deal out 2/3 and cut off 1/3. We're going to cut 2 decks off that 6-deck shoe. What it does is it eliminates the number of decisions we get out, right? When I went into the Aladdin in 1992, I moved the cut card back. We dealt 6-deck shoe, cut off 2 decks, dealt up 4. I moved the cut card back, not to 1 deck, but to 26 cards, 1/2 of a deck. I held some of the highest hold percentages on the strip at the time, and we did really fantastic in the revenue department. After everybody, I got phone calls, people saying, I don't know why you're doing it. You're going to hang yourself. You're going to hang yourself. But they didn't understand. I didn't. It was successful.
So I'll tell you a story. When I went into Cincinnati, the market never had a double deck game on the retail floor. They were always high limit pitch games in there. So I put a double deck shoe game, a 6-to-5 game on the main floor. And the sheer panic from all the managers I had a green bunch at that time, the sheer panic, we're going to get counted down in the retail with this double deck and all this. It was just, you know, the ingrained fear and the urban legends that were out there were just unbelievable. And you got to dispel all that stuff and put it behind you as a manager and understand the math, right? And you're big on the math. I always tell my managers, you know, if you don't know the house advantages of these games, how can you manage them? How can you know how good a player this player is or how valuable he is if you don't know the house advantage? And I know you're a proponent of, you know, you got to know the math. Is that true, Bill?
Yeah, and it's surprising how many people don't. That just shocks me. You know, when I was doing it, I did a class for Cutting Edge last couple of years, and one of the first things I put up is I have a 6-deck game that they're using, that the casino in Pennsylvania was using in one of their stadium setups. And it's 6 decks. They used a shuffle machine, MD shuffle machine. But one of the things they had in it, stand on all 17s and go, and what they had was early surrender. They didn't understand the difference between surrender and early surrender because they didn't take a whole card because it's a stadium game. And I had to tell everyone, what's wrong with this game? They'll look at it, I don't know, and break everything up. It's actually, if you play perfect basic strategy, the players have 0.2% advantage over the house. But nobody realized it. Nobody knew that the house had the advantage because instead of using regular surrender, they used early surrender. And so let me just tell everybody what early surrender. Early surrender is when you're allowed to surrender before the dealer looks at their whole card. So you're surrendering before a dealer would get a blackjack. And it increases the disadvantage, because insurance is a disadvantage, or surrender is a disadvantage. But the early surrenders are great. It's 10 times worse. So it turned the game around, but nobody seemed to know that.
Yeah, well, you know, I lay it out in these terms to my managers. And if you're out there and you manage a casino, you got to look at it this. Let's just say they go to the extreme situation. You got two players that walk in the door in the middle of the night. You got one dealer that you can open one game or another. Both of them are $500 average players. One's a $500 average baccarat player, and the other one's a $500 average roulette player. What game do you open up? You know, I always say, what game do you open up? And if you can't immediately tell me you better open the roulette game,
yeah,
you know, and that's how critical the math is. So good in the game protection. And I don't know if, you know, in your travels before pre-COVID, that you've seen it, but I see more, you know, advantage play has turned psychological. You know, it's forcing people into making bad payoffs that never existed and stuff like that, more than, or even forcing a host to give you a comp that you don't even deserve. And there's where the latest and the newest techniques in advantage play have come along. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. And, you know, I refer to it as social engineering, because what they do is they'll walk into a club and they'll put money on deposit in the cage. Right, here's my money. You know, I got 500,000 on deposit in the cage. I want to play, you know, this game, but I just want you to make one small rule change. And for instance, real quick, Ultimate Texas Hold'em. Ultimate Texas Hold'em, you get the blind bet. You get the bet and then the blind. And they talked to the casino, one of the casinos in Vegas, of just don't worry about it. We want you to raise the limit, but you don't have to raise it on the blind. Well, the blind's where you make all your money, right? That's where the casino makes the money. And so they turned a 2% house advantage game into about an 8% player advantage game.
It reminds me of a story with a boxman I had one time. He said he went out and bought a car, and the salesman kept dickering him around on the price. And he says, hey, I have to buy this. I've told my wife I'm going to buy this car for $15,000, and that's all I can spend. But here, I'm going to finance it. Make the interest rate whatever you want. I'll pay the interest rate, but just give me this car for $15,000. So they sold him the car for $15,000. He pulls $15,000 cash out of his wallet and pays them. Right? It's the same idea, right? Yep. You con people into doing things they shouldn't do. One of the best ones I've seen, and you know, we had this guy several times around. We kicked him out like 15 times. It just happened to be a day where, you know, some inexperienced manager was on the floor, and the guy is on roulette. So the guy's never played in a team before. He was always by himself. So he comes in and he sits down at the wheelhead, right? And he's got this cutest little 20-year-old girl who's his accomplice. So he's been there for 5 minutes. She walks in. She buys in for $600-700, right? And she's talking to the floorman. Oh, how do I get a card? And goes on and on and on and on and on. And, you know, starts betting quarters, right? And then, you know, then they made it with it, and they started betting he started betting the first section. She bet really aggressive, you know, 150, whatever, blah, blah. And she's all down, way down at the end of the columns, and she's handing the dealers these bet. And she said, here, place this on the 4 for me, right? So of course, when the top section hits a 6, and she says, oh my God, you didn't bet the 6 for me. And the dealer's like, oh no. And you know, because she was toking him out before this whole charade started, right? And now he's baffled. He's thinking, oh my God, did she say bet this on the 6 for me? And oh, it was the greatest scam in the world. Of course, they got paid. And just happened to be a day I was off, or it probably wouldn't have happened. But I got to give them credit. I got to give them credit. You know what? It was a great move, and it was a move that you couldn't go to jail for. They didn't do nothing. They didn't do nothing but con the person into it. But I think that's where advantage play has went into some kind of psychological advantage play.
Well, that like look at Don Johnson in Atlantic City. He goes
Perfect
in and
example.
he knows the math more than the casinos do. He sets up terms of discounting and comps and upfront money and stuff like that, appearance money. And by the time the smoke clears, they don't have the advantage. He's got the advantage. And he walked away for what, like maybe $10 million, 13 million out of that whole fiasco in Atlantic City. But that's where a lot of this is going now. A lot of it.
Before that Atlantic City incident, I had a lot of experience with Don Johnson at the Hard Rock. He was a handful, and now I find out the reason he was such a handful was it was all an act to try to push the dealer into one or two mistakes a shoe. All that aggressiveness, because I caught him out later when I was running the downtown Grand, and the guy was really nice gentleman, but what a handful he was on a blackjack game. But he had it down. He had the tables turned. The advantage was in his favor. He had like a first to 500,000 deal, and the trip ended immediately. That was over. He could go to the bathroom and come back, and it was a new trip. And he got so he loses 500. Now he comes back and he wins 700. But he got a 20% discount on the first 500. So he was ahead of the game to begin with. Yeah. So COVID-19's changed a lot, Bill. I mean, it's really turned this world upside down, right? Yeah. So what have you been doing? You've been stuck at home all this time?
Yeah, I have. And, it's just my choice. I flew back and I live in New Mexico. So I flew back home in middle of March, right about the time everything started to shut down, close up. And I'm not going to travel again until we have a handle on it. But what I've been doing is I do a lot of research in COVID and what you need to do. I've written several articles on COVID. It's just we're in an industry where people say, well, what should we do? We'll get more hands out. We'll get more people at the table, more spots. And then you say, well, no, wait a minute. We only get 3 people at the table. We have to put plexiglass up. And, everybody's, playing with masks on now. So it changes things. But what we have to do is we start getting away from the customer service portion. And now we're in the customer safety portion. And that's a big thing, and we have to accomplish that before we can go anywhere else.
Yeah, and I've commented on this, and I'm sure maybe I've ruined myself for a job ever in Las Vegas again. But I'm not planning to go back anytime soon.
Me neither.
I was adamant that they were making a big mistake. When they wanted to open that place up with all the transit people coming in and out from all over the place, if you didn't go with full masks, you were setting yourself up for failure.
Mm-hmm. I tried to get, I don't have the contacts I used to in Nevada, and I reached out for a really good friend of mine, and he's got some contacts with the governor's office, and I said to him, they've got to make it mandatory that people wear masks. They have to make it mandatory. And he said, listen, we've argued this till we're, blue in the face. But until the governor says it has to be mandatory, there's no way casinos are going to do it, because one casino doesn't make it mandatory, the other one does, and all the people are going to run over to the one where they can, take their pick. And my comment was that if Vegas opens up like that, which they did for about 3 weeks, that you might call the Las Vegas Strip sometime in the fall Death Valley, because these people are going to get sick, and here's the bad thing. Your employees are going to get sick. Now, if there's anybody out there that's not using masks, making mandatory for the customers, my suggestion is you better put on a faceplate on all your dealers and all your frontline help, because the only way you're going to keep them from getting sick.
So Las Vegas is in a precarious position compared to the regional properties like mine. You know, making the decision to drive 10 miles to a casino and then making the decision to hop on an airplane in the middle of a pandemic is different. And the last 10 years, you know, I've stated this in several webinars I've been in, is, you know, Vegas has just screwed the player over any way they could, right? I mean, it's all convention business, you know, and every game went to 6-5 and just 0-0. And now, you know, for the next, till this is cleared up, they're you know, most of their play is going to come from California, the drive-in business, and you know, that always, when I would work there, that was always your value-based customer. They were looking for that value, and they and Vegas got away from that. And I said, well, you know, if they're going to survive over the next 10, 15 months, whatever long it takes to get this virus under control, they need to give the player a value again. Do you believe that, Bill?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, we saw that back in 2008 when they had the recession, the last recession.
Yeah.
And, you know, we were trying to beat them out of everything for the convention, you know, trying to get them for all the fees and dues and most of it. And it all went away because we needed the business back. But as business comes back and start look, you know, prosperous, occupancy is going up, ADRs, you know, average daily rates are going up. People are crowding in the casino. And we start doing it the same thing again, charging them extra fees for checking in the hotel, and now we're charging for parking, and then, you know, you go in a buffet. Buffets used to be a bargain. You go into, well, you can't now. I mean, there's not, the buffets are going to go away, but, you know, $25, $30 for a buffet, you know, right before COVID. I mean, that's ridiculous. But it's again, it's what the market will bear. People don't go to Vegas anymore to gamble. They go there for the entertainment. That's it.
You know, Jeff Ma, who was part of the famous MIT Count team, he wrote a book called House Advantage, and he's into sports betting and stuff like that. But he was talking about getting the house advantage in every form of business. Well, Vegas had taken that to an extreme. They're getting a house advantage on resort fees. They're getting a house advantage on parking fees. And the bad thing about having too high of house advantage, you know that in a table game, right? Yeah. Sooner or later, go burn the player out, and you're not going to have a player. They're just, right. It's not fun anymore. And I guess we need this pandemic to right side the ship in Vegas. Hopefully, you know, we'll get a little bit of a change from that house advantage mentality for a while.
Yeah, for a little while.
Yeah, right. Until they can start booking them because conventions back in, and then all bets are off.
Well, you know, it's not the same mindset it used to be. The mindset is major corporations now are trying to get, you know, we did X amount of money in 2005. We have to, in 2006, we have to do 10% better, or they're gonna find someone else who come in and run it, or change your strategy, or whatever. So there's this big push with major corporations to always improve. Always, the bottom line has to improve, revenue has to improve. And as long as you have that, you're gonna after everything comes back and tourists are coming back to Vegas, you're still gonna get that same problem. This is gonna happen.
You know, I always bring this up, and it's you know, my company, the Hard Rock International, was one of the first to mandate masks for the player and the guests and all this. And I was told a story about you know, Jim Allen was in with one of the tribal leaders, and you know, they had this conversation, and the head of the Seminole tribe said to Jim, you know, this ain't a joke. People are dying out there. You know what? We're going to put safety over profits. It's going to cost us a little bit, but you know what? When this is all over, we're going to kick butt, and that's all people got to do, right? Think about taking care of the guests. We made some money off of them over the last 10 years. Let's give them a good time, because it's hard to have a good time right now, right? Yeah. And now some people can actually get out and go to a casino and, you know, do what you can to protect them and let them have a good time. It's easy stuff, right? It's not that hard.
And not only just the customers, but you also have to take care of your employees, you know.
Yeah. Well, yeah, absolutely. You know, that's another thing, you know, I've just been amazed with this company. You know, we've given food vouchers, uh, 8 different times for $200 to our employees, and we paid them for a few weeks with full tokes and everything, and then we still got their insurance going. We got a few people furloughed. You know, at my casino it's the poker and the valet, and other casinos it's something else, but we still got them covered by insurance. So it's very right. You got to take care of the people. I just got an absolutely heartfelt message from a poker dealer sitting on the sideline, thanking, you know how good that, and it ain't me, it's this organization. So I'm really, yeah, I don't want to get too caught up in the Hard Rock International, but Bill, I appreciate you coming on. And any last words you got for the viewers out there?
No, not really. I think everybody, you know, if they come in, they tune in your show and they watch it, I think they're going to learn some really good information. Personally, you know, we're all just going to have to wait out this pandemic. I don't see anything really changing until after we get, you know, a successful vaccine. But that's it. I was just going to be patient, stay safe and healthy.
So you told me you may be appearing on the Table Games conference, going to have a telecast coming up instead of the...
Yeah, BNP Media, that's the ones that have the table game cutting edge every fall. And like all their other conferences, they had to go ahead and cancel. But the BNP guys are going to do some stuff, you know, virtual, where you can log on and sign up for classes. And I've got, they want me to do an hour-long session sometime in November. I think it was the 17th of November. On table game mathematics. So I'm looking forward to, actually it's going to be on hold percentage, and I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, well, you guys don't want to miss that. And I'm also down here somewhere underneath this video here, I'm going to put links to Bill's website. At some point in time, he may decide to do some work for somebody after this thing's over, and I'll put some links to where you can buy his books. Bill is always the greatest. If you know this man, I'm telling you what, I've probably been emailing you, Bill, for 15 years.
Yeah.
And I'm never, I've
been answering him.
Yeah. The first time I said it, I'm like, this guy ain't going to answer this email. But man, it was like 2 hours later. And I think it was a really stupid question, because at that point in time, I wasn't quite as bright as I am now, if I'm bright at all. Hey, but anyway, you always answer the question. And guys, if you've got a question, don't be afraid. Okay, if you're afraid to ask somebody, then ask Bill. You know, he's behind the typewriter. We don't even have typewriter. He's behind the keyboard. You know, ask him, and he'll. You know what? It may not be the answer you want to hear, but he's never failed to answer a question. And I, like me, you know, Bill's a pay it forward type of guy, and you know what? That's how you got to live your lifestyle.
Yeah, Benny, if you could put up my email address, just tell, you know, the AOL one, just tell everybody, you know, I'll tell them that I'll answer any question you have. I'll answer it. If I can answer it with an email, that's, you know, you and me doing it. That's it. If anybody has it, once, you know, either I do tape reviews, I also do training classes. If they want it, they want that done after the training after the COVID problem, or if they want some reviews now or some pointers, just have them get a hold of me.
Excellent. Everybody, Bill Zender. Bill, thanks for being on.
Thanks, Bernie. Appreciate it.
Remember to like and subscribe if you like this video, and we'll be doing more. Bill, till next time, my friend.
All right, you take care, Benny.
Take care.